Okay, everyone, to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today I have a really cool review for you from the brand Omega. A little bit about them. They were founded back in 1848. They are Swiss-made in origin, and of course are part of the luxury tier within the Swatch Group. And I know some of you hear Swatch Group and automatically get a little turned off, but not everybody kind of remembers that Omega and Tissot merging was actually a precursor to what eventually would become to be known as the Swatch Group. So I would consider their history a touch more pure than some of the other brands that are within the group that are kind of just the names living on, without any of kind of the original things that made those brands great. So I would say that, of course, Tissot and Omega do have a special place within the Swatch Group in terms of them really still being everything that you kind of know them for, and that being kind of without any breaks within kind of their lineage, which I think is something to add value to when you think about them as a brand. Now, in terms of the type of watch, very clearly here you can see it's a dive watch, some key common characteristics and design which you're looking for a diver. Of course, you're going to want water resistance, typically with some type of screw down crown. You're going to want something that's tough, legible with a dive time bezel, and a diver's extension is always nice if on bracelet. This is the Seamaster Professional Diver, 300 meters. And, a little bit about this model. Hey, since 1993, the Seamaster Professional Diver 300 meters has enjoyed a legendary following. Today's modern collection has embraced that famous ocean heritage and updated it with Omega's best innovations and designs. This 42 millimeter model is crafted from stainless steel and includes a blue ceramic bezel with a white enamel diving scale. The dial is sunbrushed PVD chrome color ceramic, and it features laser engraved waves and a date window at the 6 o'clock. Now, MSRP for these is $5,100, which is still an amazing deal and why it is so often kind of recommended. But on the other side, if you can get this, of course, secondary market, you can get this actually from Belmont Watches. This was lent in kindly by them for $37.85, guys. So well under $4,000, you can have something this good. So very cool. So with that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. All right, guys. Now this is exactly what people always recommend, right? Is a used Seamaster, right? It doesn't matter what type of watch you could be saying on the forums or the Facebook groups that you're looking into buying your first luxury dress watch, and somebody's gonna come into the comments and say, get a used Seamaster instead. So hey, here we go. There's a reason why this thing is so highly recommended. It's because it has a lot going for it. So it has a 42 millimeter diameter. It has a 13.6 millimeter thickness, which isn't super thin, but because it really gets spread really well within this 42 millimeter diameter, it feels much thinner. In terms of the lug to lug, 49.4, which isn't super short or compact, but the way that these lugs are, they actually are, quite tidy. And then especially when you think about the turn within kind of the horn, it does do even more magic to kind of slice away. And a lot of it you're going to see is just reflection from the beveling on there. So visually, it's going to almost appear to be like a lugless design or like lugless, right? I mean, you can still clearly see there's lugs there, but you know what I mean. They do a good job really hiding that visual weight, which makes this watch wear much smaller, which I think is really cool. And overall pretty neat aspect about this that doesn't really get talked about too much. Now, that crystal is double domed, and it's sapphire with AR coating on both sides. So you can see that even at very, very harsh angles, this thing is extremely readable. Check that out. I mean, no distortion, really. That is pretty amazing. So really well done, and I love the profile, how it just all kind of flows. And not every watch can pull this off, but you can see the profile of the ceramic bezel insert. It just blends beautifully into that great sapphire crystal. So getting into the bezel, 120 clicks. Not the easiest to grasp, but when you grasp it, very nice bezel action itself. You hear that? The slow clicks is what really sells you. So precise, no real back play. I mean, really, the only fault I can give the bezel is the grip. Although the grip looks cool and, you know, has a little kind of wave motif to it. Let me give it a quick wipe here off screen. Although it does have a little bit of a wave kind of tie-in, right? When you look at the way the grip, the scallops on here kind of have this beautiful wavy design that the light plays off of. You know, it kind of makes it worth it. And honestly, how often are you going to be using your bezel? Yeah, especially when the world of divers these days are going to be using dive computers, and stuff like this is more for fun than for necessity. So plus, then you think about all the desk divers, so you'll be absolutely fine if you're wearing this at work or recreationally. And if you do need to use it, you can absolutely use it for its intended purpose. But this thing is so nice and honestly costs to a certain price point to where, you know, maybe you'd be fine, maybe never turning the bezel, because it's just, at the end of the day, it's actually a really just straightforward sports luxury tool watch. Now, getting into the crown, you can see it's nicely signed and screwed down, and then flipping this over, very, very cool movement. The Omega 8800 master chronometer, of course, certified, so that means 0 to +6 seconds in terms of that METIS certification. It does have a reduced beat rate, so it's only 3.5 hertz, something that not a lot of people talk about. So essentially, instead of it having that full 4 hertz sweep at 28,800 vibrations per hour, here you're only getting 25,200 vibrations per hour, and it only has a 55-hour power reserve, although it is anti-magnetic to 15,000 Gauss, which is nice. So those are some things that not everybody mentions when they talk about these Omega movements. They are very, very cool, and they definitely have their own look to them in terms of the decorations. They are ultimately capable, but if you think about it, you know, those are drawbacks for a lot of people. Either you reduced the beat rate, and the power reserve isn't really that long at 55 hours. There are models that do have slightly longer power reserves, but nothing crazy. But that is something to consider when you are thinking about what a bang per buck this is really proposed as. And a lot of the bang is that name recognition on the dial. Also, the fact that this is, of course, you know, related to Bond, right? Since Pierce Brosnan, these wave dial Seamaster divers have really been synonymous with James Bond, regardless of the configuration. And if it ever made it onto the movie screen, people just kind of see that, and it's just brand association at this point. But these are really awesome looking. You do get that great sunbrushed PVD chrome color ceramic finish on the dial with the beautiful laser engraved waves. You're getting applied indices, which are nicely blued, which do match the handset, as you can see there, if I get it into the light. Also, you get this cool two-tone lume where the bezel pip is going to be green and the minute hand is going to glow green, while everything else is going to be blue, so it does have that nice kind of pop to it. It's 30 bar or 300 meters or even 1,000 feet of water resistance in terms of the numbers there. 20 millimeter lugs, and you're getting this cool fitted end rubber strap with a 2 millimeter taper down to 18 millimeters down at the milled signed, really beautifully finished buckle there. So very, very cool. And you can see even the keepers are signed here. So let's take a closer look at this very nice, very, very comfortable strap. So with that said, let's actually get this piece on wrist and see how it wears. Okay guys, as you can see on my 7.5 inch wrist, this wears really beautifully, nice and flat. And then if I get my wrist a little bit too close to the camera, you can see there's going to be some lens distortion making this appear a bit larger than it truly is. So what I'll do is I'll leave my hand down here, and then I'll just tighten the shot up just slightly so you guys can get a better look at how this might render, you know, with a more realistic aspect ratio. And you can see this thing wears beautifully. It just is tapered and tucked and tailored in all the right places, so it just wears just like a dream there, guys. There's a reason why this design has been so long lasting. It's because ergonomically it really has some magic to it in terms of its proportions. Are there other types of divers out there that can get a really nice formula for wear? Of course, but I would say the Seamaster Professional definitely is one of the front runners in terms of just kind of creating something that just it defies its specs, which I think is pretty cool. So with that said, let's actually get it off the wrist, set up for some Lume shots, the light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Look at that. I mean, really fantastic Lume that you would expect from a pretty legendary dive watch. But one thing I always do like to work in is some low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, maybe just spending time in your favorite automobile or underneath the shade of a tree. So it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting, to maybe even include some harsh lighting, which might expose any type of production defects. But you can see here, this is a true luxury timepiece in terms of just being that extra level that you don't really need, especially for a tool watch, but somehow Omega does it so clean and classy and at a really, really approachable price point. So, closing thoughts on this one, guys. Wears like a real true 42 millimeter watch should. It also feels a bit slimmer than the 13.6 millimeter thickness would imply. And then in terms of model variations, guys, there's tons of variants. Definitely check their sites, whatever. Or you could, of course, go onto Belmont Watches and see what other models that they have available. But if you're interested in this one, definitely check them out, because this one is pretty sweet. I don't know how long it's going to last. In terms of comparable models, I would say that the Seamaster Professional really has been the gold standard into luxury divers since Pierce Brosnan's Bond, and it only has pretty recently been rivaled by Tudor divers, with these kind of in-group movements that do have some nice specs in terms of, elongated power reserves. But other than that, I mean, they kind of stand alone as just like, hey, if you're going to spend $5,000 on a watch, spend $5,000 on a good watch, and this is typically going to be what's recommended. So for me, guys, the bottom line is there's a reason why these watches continue to be so highly regarded and recommended. So if you really like this aesthetic subjectively, I'd say you'll absolutely enjoy all of the objective qualities that also come with this very popular line of luxury divers. So with that said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please leave a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.